The Hall of Memories.
All the memories. All starts there. This is the Kayos recipe, August 12, 2004. This is the base recipe. These are all my notes when I was a young cook working in San Sebastian. This notebook never left my side for about 2 years. Heartbeat right here. Here we are in the kitchen in Ernesto's where all the magic happens. This is the heartbeat of the restaurant. Everything from desserts, pastries, breads, prep. And one thing we're going to feature today, a lot of our charcuterie and embutidos are made right here. I want people to know that we make our own sausages from scratch that are recipes based on recipes that I learned over 20 years ago. In particular, today we're going to make morcilla. Okay, morcilla is very special to me. I first tried it working in the Basque Country, and it's a flavor profile that never left my mind, my palate, or my heart. This recipe particularly is in kind of correlation with morcilla called beasain, which is pork blood, and mainly onions and some spices. Some people add leeks to it, some people add oregano to it. This one is a little bit particular as it's the one that we use. So without further ado, we're going to show all the processes with Sevi here, who's our master butcher. Say hello, Seb.
Hello.
Okay. And we're going to go step by step. And then after the morcilla has been made, I'll show you how we incorporate it to one of our many dishes with the product. You let me know. So we're going to start the foundation of the sausage. Starts with onions. Like I said before, some people like to sweat leeks as well. I prefer that less moisture happens when it's just onions. Some people sweat directly in manteca or pork fat. We're going to start with a little bit of blended oil and onions, and then seguimos con algo de ajo también, ¿no?
Sí.
And a little bit of garlic after the onions have sweated for a few seconds.
Lo que lleva tomillo, laurel,
Primero.
en pimienta negra.
También ahora mismo.
Sí, ese cuando ya está la cebolla aquí.
Okay. So, garlic first. This time.
Después se va.
So, perfuming with the garlic, the oil. No queremos quemar.
No.
Okay. Not too much color. Not too much oil. Now we add the onions. Tampoco no tenemos demasiada grasa aquí tampoco.
No mucho.
We don't want a lot of fat in here. Just enough to cook everything, but you don't want it drenched in oil because that's going to affect the actual casing process later. Directamente. Oh no. Hicimos un
sachet.
Yeah. So again, sachet. Bay leaves, thyme, peppercorn. ¿Qué más? Juniper?
No, juniper.
No juniper. Okay. Bay leaf, thyme, peppercorn. That's gonna perfume the onions. All right. Putting it in.
Y ya de ahí dejamos una hora que se cocine.
So this needs to cook for about an hour.
Sacamos para que el vapor
Uh-huh.
se quede adentro.
We'll cover it It'll steam slightly, and after an hour, we're left with a very particular and special product that's going to be the base of our sausage. So now we go to
Lo que tenemos cocinando ahora.
Después de una hora.
Después de una hora.
after 1 hour.
Tiene que estar muy suave la cebolla, que no quede dura, ¿no? Porque no salga muy dura.
So after an hour, the onions have gotten soft. They're not totally caramelized, but the membrane has all been broken down, and they're essentially room temperature. ¿Prefieres como así o más frío?
Frío.
You want it cold because that's going to help form the actual farce of the sausage.
Sí, porque es mejor frío porque cuando está caliente, como la carne tiene mucha grasa, entonces se empieza a hacer
Yeah,
suelta
like
mucha
any
grasa.
type of farce making, you want all the ingredients cold because the fat needs to stay cold, because if it reacts with heat, it's not going to stay tight.
Okay. Okay. Esa es la carne de cerdo que ocupamos.
Okay.
Es la pierna de la pierna.
All right, so most of the meat that we grind up for the sausage is going to be pork, butt, hind, ham. Sometimes we'll add a little bit of belly, sometimes a little bit of shoulder. Today, it's coming from the ham. And the next step is to blend it all up in the meat grinder.
Okay.
La olla. Ya. ¿Pueden mover? Está reduciendo. Está, ya.
Okay. Tenemos la máquina.
So, using the Hobart, same thing we use for doughs. The all-purpose machine today, we're using the grinding element to grind our meat.
Hay que moler dos veces.
We're going to grind it 2 times.
Segunda vez, ya para dejarlo.
La misma talla o?
La misma.
We're going to grind it twice using the same dial. It's going to help break it down.
Y ese segundo. Ok. Este ya lo tenemos listo ahora para hacer la mezcla.
Ajá.
Dos veces para que no quede los trocitos de carne como muy grande, ¿no?
Right. So it's been ground twice, and now it's at a perfect consistency to make the rest of the farce. You want to grind it twice to just double check that it's all broken down, because essentially this farce is pretty smooth. Parece suavecito, ¿no?
Sí, suave.
Okay.
Ok, ahora ya vamos a ir con la mesa.
So next step, we're going to really make the farce all together, and he's going to show us how it's done.
La carne. Ok.
So, you have the meat cold in the bowl. ¿Todo bien, amiguitos?
Sí,
Okay.
Es la cebolla.
Uh-huh.
Teníamos ahí cocinando.
Right. So now the onions go in.
Es el sachet.
Ajá.
Pero ese no lo ocupamos, solo
Right.
para el sabor.
So obviously the sachet does not go in. You don't want to eat that. but you want to squeeze all that flavor out. Okay. Next, pork blood. Manteca. Okay. So, next steps. Pork fat.
Okay. Manteca.
This pork fat has been rendered. Tampoco tiene demasiado sabor, ¿eh?
No. Entonces siempre le agregamos.
Yeah,
para-
so
como
this
para
is
darle
just
más-
rendered
más-
pork fat, not
más sabor.
not too much flavor.
Ahora, sangre.
Uh-huh. Now the blood goes in.
Sí, de poquito para ir mirando cómo se queda de color.
Right.
Sí, no, no mezclarlo.
So again, like everything, you want to do it in steps. We might not need to add all the blood yet. You kind of want to see the color of the farce and see where it takes us before we continue to add more.
Panko.
Breadcrumb, thickening agent. In this application, we're using panko, which I still think is a fabulous product and a universal product, and you can't do much better.
Sal.
Sal. Already measured. We know exactly how much we're using, and that's the point of making a recipe consistent.
Pimientos.
Dulce y picante, los dos.
Y espolette.
Okay,
Hay
so
tres ingredientes.
now we're adding pimenton. Smoked paprika sweet, smoked paprika hot, and lastly a little bit of espelette, which is a traditional chili flake from the Basque country. It has a little bit of heat, but it's not too spicy.
Okay,
Now we mix.
mezclamos.
Wow, look at that. It's awesome.
Looks really good.
Mm-hmm.
And it smells really good even now.
Yeah. And, you know, essentially, this is a recipe that I learned and saw 20-something years ago. This is almost similar to a French Basque boudin noir, which is black pudding, morcilla, whatever you want to call it. Obviously, the Basque region goes into France, and they have their own method of doing things. So, this is kind of a hybrid recipe of Béassain and boudin noir from the French Basque country.
The best of both worlds.
Best of both worlds. You can't overlook one. So now the color, it looks pretty good, but ¿qué crees? ¿Podemos echar más sangre?
Sí, un
Porque
poco más.
más color, ¿no?
Sí, y yo el panko también le echamos todo.
Yeah, so he's feeling it right now. The texture could be a little bit tighter, and that's where the thickening agent of the breadcrumbs come in. And we also agree that the the color could be a little bit deeper, and that's where the blood comes in. Also, you're adjusting back and forth between liquids and solids to find that right texture before it goes in the casing. Poco a poco de todo ahora, ¿no?
Sí.
De seco y
De seco,
líquido, ¿no?
Líquido, sí. Después lo probamos si está bien de sal. Pues no, agregamos un poco más.
¿Cómo probamos?
También de
Sartén,
sal,
okay.
en sartén.
So he said that before we case it all up, we want to make sure the seasoning is where it needs to be. Like any kind of farce in a gigantic batch, you don't want to case something up that's under seasoned. So what we always do is have a little non-stick pan and make a little tiny hamburger patty and cook it up and see if it's where we want it to be. Because once you add too much salt, you can't go back.
If somebody trying to make this at home and they can't find pork blood, is there any substitute they can use?
Yeah, I think if you can find beef blood, it does work. I mean, I've seen morcilla made from beef blood, but I think the best results come from pork. But if you want to try it with beef, by all means. Podemos utilizar un sangre diferente si quieres, porque de vaca o de buey
Sí.
podemos usar.
Sí, lo podemos usar también.
So yeah, you can do it. I mean, again, I've seen morcilla made with rabbit blood.
Así tiene que quedar. No muy aguado,
Uh-huh.
ni muy seco.
So this is where you want it. Not too dry, not too soft. Perfect, because it still has to have enough of a consistency to be piped into the casings, which is the next step.
Okay. Vamos a probarlo ahora.
Okay, so now we're going to taste a little bit, make sure it's good.
Dejemos que se cocine un poco.
¿Y qué resultados están esperando de
Aquí.
cocinarlo?
Aquí solo como unos 2 minutitos. Pero para hacer allá, para cocinarlo, necesita una noche. Una noche para reposar y para el siguiente día lo cocinamos.
Oh, ok.
Sí, ahorita no está listo porque tiene líquido.
Está
Pero
muy
tiene que
mojado.
desliquear un poquito para cuando lo cocinemos no se abre,
No se abre.
no se explota.
Y ustedes están chequeando para ver qué sabor tiene ahorita ya que ha cocinado.
Sí, vamos a probar si está bien de sal. De sal, solamente de sal, de los otros ingredientes está bien. Pero de sal es siempre importante. Saber que está bien.
After sauteing, we just check to see the salt and seasoning, then wait 24 hours for it to set, and then before we can actually set it into the casing.
All right. Smells good, huh?
Really good.
You can smell the spices, you can smell the pork.
Un poco más de sal, ¿no?
Mhm.
Un poco más. Del
Está
resto
bien,
está
¿eh?
bien, del resto está bien.
Bien rico.
Sí.
Estoy bien, gracias.
Ya después de esto, lo mezclamos y ya lo podemos embutir.
Uh-huh.
Ya lo podemos embutir.
So we said after this has been seasoned, we feel that's where it needs to be. And now we're going to case it up. Embutir.
embutido.
This is the casing that we're going to case the filling with. And now here comes the next step.
Colocamos la base.
So the forest goes in the pretzel. Now we're going to connect it to the rest of the machine. And it's very simple. Press and then case.
Listo.
So the horn is ready.
Para embutir.
The casing is on.
Esa es la tripa.
That's the casing. Hog casing. Goes for $8 for a pint's worth. Pretty good deal. Pretty easy to find these days too. So, here, crucial steps. Just gonna test it a little bit, make sure.
Lo amarramos.
Ajá.
para que no se salga.
And now we're gonna tie it up.
Vamos.
Here we go.
Despacio para que la tripa no se rompa.
Uh-huh.
Sí, para que no se llene también. Si se llena demasiado es cuando se rompe la tripa. Entonces ya no sirve.
So you don't want to fill it too much because that's how the casing will break, obviously.
No.
Very nice. Yeah. Really nice.
Ok, lo cortamos.
Wow, in one shot.
Wow, look at that.
Ok.
And that's it.
That's it.
Now-
Ahora vamos a amarrar.
Now he's going to twist it up.
Ok.
Puedes guardar como 5 o 6 al lado para mí,
Ok. Comenzamos.
So now we're doing the twist. We're essentially portioning the sausage.
Ok. Uno adelante y otro para atrás.
Uh-huh. One hand's going one way, one hand's going the other way. wrists. And as you twist, you keep coiling. ¿Aquí es una receta normal o...?
Aquí hay para 2 recetas.
Ajá.
Sí.
¿Todavía tiene algo más carne o qué?
Sí, tengo.
Okay.
Todavía tengo más allá.
So this is essentially half of the recipe showing. There's another half in the vessel here, which he'll continue to case up from all that meat. And look,
Sí, es cuando se presiona mucho también se rompe, ¿no?
even the pros make mistakes sometimes, and that's the nature of the business. That's okay. We'll stuff it, and if we tie it too tight, once in a while you'll lose 1 or 2, but that's okay.
Okay.
And that's it. Entonces ahora mismo guardamos en la nevera,
Lo
¿no?
guardamos, sí,
24 horas más o menos.
más o
¿no?
menos 24 horas para que salga el líquido que lleva.
Uh-huh. So at this point, we'll put it in the walk-in, and we want it to cool and tighten up for at least 24 hours. Then the last step would be after it's kind of settled, is we're going to poach it and basically cook the sausage. But you're going to yield a better product if you have it 24 hours for the sausage to sit in the walk-in and tighten up.
Okay. Ahora lo picamos para quitarle los
Pockets of air.
Yeah. But I think after that, that's it, because then tomorrow we're going to show part
Eso
2.
lo ocupamos para pinchar.
Oh, nice.
So right now we're going to pop. He's going to pop for little air pockets.
También lo picamos para que liquee, para que no tenga mucho líquido adentro.
Yeah, if there's a little bit of extra blood or liquid, by popping a few holes, it's going to, no pun intended, bleed out. But you're going to be left with a little bit of a drier product, which is what we're looking for. So after it's popped, and he feels confident, it's going to go in the walk-in and cool for 24 hours and set up. Y ya está, entonces.
Y ya
Mañana
está.
podemos continuar.
Ya
¿no?
mañana podemos continuar, ¿sí?
So yeah, I think that's as far as we get with this today, because tomorrow I'm going to show you
The
actual poaching it and then turning it in, and utilizing it in a dish. But he feels it's best to do it in a 2-day process. So I think we can finish this and then finish the callos, the last steps of that.
Ya
And
nada,
then
ya lo podemos cocinar, sí.
Okay. So now we're traying it up, and it's going to cool in the walk-in.
Pero por ahora no importa que esté como...
It's not a big deal if
Necesario
it's
estar
perfectly
bien
coiled
acomodado.
now. It's going to set up nice, and tomorrow we'll finish.
Okay.
Entonces ya que el agua hirviendo un poco.
Sí, después le bajamos la temperatura
Okay.
para que se cocine en fuego lento.
So we want it to boil gently.
En los 250.
250, 260, 260 Fahrenheit, ¿no?
Sí.
260 degrees, gentle simmer, How long? ¿Cuánto tiempo? 20 minutos?
Como 20, 25 minutos.
20, 25 minutes in the water bath.
Tiene que estar a 150. 160 está bien.
Uh-huh. So now he's going to check the temperature. 160, 170. It's cooked enough and good to...
160.
Está bien, suficiente. So he just tested it, it's 160 degrees. It's sufficient. Now it gets shocked directly in a water bath, which is just water and ice. And that's going to stop the continuation of the cooking. And now we just let it cool before we turn it into a dish.
Lo dejamos unos 10 minutos, ya lo sacamos, lo ponemos en la nevera por 20 minutos o más máximo. Ya lo podemos cocinar.
Okay, so about 10 minutes in ice water, and at least another 10, 20 minutes in the cooler. And then at that point, once it's settled, we can apply it to something we want to cook. Perfect. Yeah. So here it is, the finished product. Morcilla, udon more, black pudding, call it whatever you want, but this is the Ernesto's version. And now we're going to take this and turn it into a dish, one of my favorite ways to serve it. Let's go. 3. Alright, so the morcilla is complete. It's set up. And now we're going to use it and turn it into a dish. Obviously, you can use this product many different ways. If this was the winter time, I would maybe serve it with alubias de Tolosa, which are black beans that have been stewed and cooked slowly for a long time. And you normally serve it with morcilla, a little pork belly, chistorra, which is chorizo, and some cabbage and pickled peppers. Considering it's summer, I wanted to go a little bit more seasonal. It's late August, it's peak pepper time. So we got some incredible red peppers from the market, and we cook them essentially a la candela, which means that they're charred on the grill and then peeled and then cooked low and slow in olive oil for about 3 hours at around 300 degrees to the point where they're practically candied. Soft, but almost with a leather type texture. Sweet and full of umami. So how I like to serve it, some of my favorite ways to serve morcilla is with eggs and potatoes. It doesn't get much more simple than fried eggs, fried potatoes, morcilla, and you get a little bit of sweet nuance from the red pepper. We're going to turn it into a dish which is essentially called Huevos Rotos, which is fries, fried egg, pepper and morcilla, and lastly, traditionally, table side, break it all up. This is if you're cutting food for a baby in their high chair, and it's ready to eat with a fork and a spoon. Let's do it. So there's many ways to heat up the morcilla now and finish the cooking. You can put it in a pot with some water, let it come to a gentle simmer. You could put it on the grill. If you're careful with it, you can cut it up and fry it. I'm simply going to put it in the oven and let it kind of bake all the way through. Then we're going to cut it into pieces and serve it with the fried eggs and fries and pepper. So step 1, putting this in the oven and let it finish cooking. And we might even, after we cut it, flash it slightly. It's still a little bit medium rare on the interior. So let's go in the oven. That's that. And I think a little bit longer. It's good, huh? Wow. perfect. So, morcilla's out. I'm gonna give it a cut. And it's perfect. Probably gonna flash in the oven just another minute, but as you can see, the pudding is exactly where we want it to be. So, it goes. So we're finishing the fries. These are hand cut patatas fritas, so they've been oiled, blanched, and I'm finishing a little bit of oil. I prefer kind of grandma style. They're not completely consistent. They don't get passed through a dial. They're a little bit different each shape. Consistent, but individual. Put some salt on them. They're ready to go to the plate. Souffle. Great. Next. I'm gonna add beautiful confit peppers. Wow, look at that. A little bit more salt. Now we're gonna fry an egg. Drain. Drain. Now. Directly on there. A little more salt. And lastly, a morcilla. So, again, huevo frito, peppers, fried potatoes, and morcilla. I'm going to show you the most traditional way that I've seen it done and the way I like to eat it the most. And it's very simple. First and foremost, we're going to crack the yolk. And then from there, break it all up. The best way at this point, take some morcilla, huevo, pepper, potato. Here we go. Wow. Tears. This evokes so much memory and sensation and comfort, and at the same time, technique, reference, all in one plate. So I hope after seeing this, you have a newfound respect for blood sausage, fries, eggs, and peppers.